What's a tip that's NSFW but can save your life? If your shit looks like coffee grounds and is pitch black, it's not poop. It's old blood. I had internal bleeding. I found out after talking to my brother who was a medic in the army on the phone, and I joked about my shit. Ended up having a fun hospital visit. Turned out to be fine, but it was a scare. Edit, just to clarify, it wasn't once. I shit like 4 times that day, all pitch black coffee grounds. Just because your poop is black doesn't mean you are dying. You know what you ate and how it affects your bowels more than I do. Story time. Years ago at Boy Scout summer camp, some kids were playing manhunt and one fella fell backwards over a pine tree trunk not properly trimmed that lined a trail. When he fell, a remnant of a limb pierced his calf all the way through to the point you could see it poking the skin on the opposite side of the puncture. He handled it like a champ as we sawed the piece off the trunk to keep it in his leg to send him to the hospital. I felt bad for the kid cause it happened on his birthday. I saw him at camp the following year. I know it was him because he had a round scar about the size of a $50 coin on the inside of his calf. Wounds in that department can take years and surgery to recover. Louis XIV was the king of France and he suffered from an anal fistula. He was in such pain that he couldn't sit down, or lay down, so every day at count he was laying on his stomach, with his ass up in the air, so he wasn't in pain. He went to his barber and told him he wanted a surgical cure. The barber said, "Fuck that, I'm not doing impossible surgery on the king." But Louis was insistent, so his barber eventually agreed if he was able to spend a few years experimenting on prisoners first. Anyway, after practicing for years, it turns out the surgery on Louis XIV was very successful, a complete cure. So now Louis is going around telling everyone how modern he was for having his butthole cured. But all this time he still walks around with huge bloody bandages wrapped around his butt. So the rest of the nobility start to wrap their own butts up in fake bloody bandages, since getting anal fistula surgery is now en vogue. So for a while, it was a fashion trend to wrap your butt up in bloody bandages. Flared bases, people, flared bases. My mother is a nurse and once had to look after a guy whose friend stuck a vibrator up his ass on his stag do as a prank. His ass sucked the toy inside him where it proceeded to vibrate and bounce around his insides, causing a ruptured bowel as well as a number of other problems. A ruptured bowel can kill you. This guy was lucky. While his situation was particularly extreme and illustrated the need to choose your friends carefully, this can happen to anyone who is using the wrong toy or the right toy incorrectly. Anal sex toys should have a base that is flared past the widest point of the main body of the toy. Hell, this doesn't even have to just refer to sex and or sex toys. Always be safe and use the right tool for the particular job. Truth. I once chased a man out of my apartment naked. So, I'm in college, sharing a suite with my girlfriend and 2 roommates. One roommate dropped out, the other had just checked in with us a city away. So, they were not home. My girlfriend shakes me awake. I just heard something. Go check it out. I'm thinking, oh, bullshit, but whatever. I climb out of bed, and step out our door into the hallway, and there's some dude. He looks at me, and all the blood runs out of his face. He's pure white with terror. I yell, "Who the fuck are you?" And he bolts for the back door. Turns out the raw gave his friend a key to our apartment so this creep could slip a note under my roommate's door while she away. He was not ready for the angry naked man at 2 a.m. Edit. I'm leaving it spelled wrong. Funny story. My anatomy and physiology teacher told a story like that about her professor. The professor said, "I have a vial of urine. The easy way to test for diabetes is to simply dip your finger in and taste it." He dipped the finger, tasted, and said, "Yes, this urine indicates diabetes." Then he passed around the vial. Everyone tested it and said it tasted like nothing or it tasted sweet. Completely random. The professor said, "I dipped my middle finger in the piss, and I licked my index. You weren't paying attention and just tasted piss, and that was the lesson." Diatribe in reductio ad absurdum follows. His point was to not look at things as if they are obvious. Look at the details. It wasn't piss, by the way. It was a little yellow food coloring in warm water which is tasteless if not bitter. yet some of the students said it was sweet. Yes, my teacher fell for it and was proud to tell the story. Thus, I remember the lesson to this day. Look, see, different thing, watch, fool, test, review, think, adjust, adapt, test again, verify, confirm, commit, repeat as necessary. I know that's kind of gibberish, but that's what came out while writing. If you go down on someone, male or female, and it's really, really salty, that person might have kidney problems. When kidneys stop functioning properly, the electrolytes start exiting the body via the skin, instead of being peed out. You could also lick their shoulder. Edit. Thanks everyone for the awards, and the laughs. I'm looking at you, Brownie Red. Literally spent the last 5 hours reading comments and laughing. So, again, thank you. Honestly, I've achieved a similar reaction or result by saying something they aren't expecting, especially if it's just a drunkard or someone who is unduly enraged. I'll make up some nonsense like, you know what I like, tissue paper and milk before they go into trash. Like, it makes no sense, but it's close enough to a regular sentence that they try to process what you've said. That does two things. That split second of thinking gives you time to step away or to a more advantageous position, causes them to engage a cognitive, logic side of their brain, which then tells them this fight is stupid. If that's the actual science, but any gibberish that's close enough to a real sentence seems to work. Just don't use big words, lol. When I was in high school, the dumbest guy in my social circle told us he planned to make some money by making LSD after finding a recipe. This was around 1990, so no internet for easily finding things out. I forget how he actually got the recipe, but he said the toughest part was you had to do a certain step at exactly the right temp or it would become poison or something. And did I mention this guy was dumb, and he's just gonna try his best to whip up this shit that very easily could become poison if he messes up? Thanks, Derek. I have never tried any drugs like that because you scared me straight in 9th grade. I sure hope you didn't kill 100 people with shitty LSD. OMFG. This is so sadly true. As a CNA, I take care of people of all ages, and so many people just do not know how important genital hygiene is. I see women who wipe back to front. I mean nasty full on BM and wipe, and no amount of explaining how wrong it is changes it. Men with thick, vile, cheesy buildup under the foreskin because they either can't do a proper cleaning job on it anymore or never really did it right. At that point I have to take over. It's uncomfortable for some, but once they are clean for a while they are less resistant to care. Peeing after sex, especially for women due to their short urethra, but men should too. It cleans out the pipes, so to speak. This is to prevent urinary tract infections. UTIs are serious, and at the very least both men and women should pee as soon as possible after sex. Edit. UTIs are common and can indeed be fatal or cause complications. By the way, as a guy who got a UTI, there really aren't any good fast-acting over-the-counter options out there that I know of. I had to get a shot in my ass from the doctor. If you're being attacked, even if it's not life or death, fight like it is. Stick your fingers in their eyes, hit them in the throat or groin, pull skin, cheeks, ears, whatever. Fight like you're refusing to become a victim. You might not win, but you will scare the attacker. Don't stop until they run off or you're too beaten to defend yourself. Absolutely go apeshit on them. Also, if you're ever being forced, even at gunpoint, into a trunk, fight and scream. You may die, but if you get in that trunk you absolutely will die. If you are forced and pull the trunk release put into all trunks in the last decade or so, punch a light out and wave at cars behind them. Do whatever you can to protect yourself. Do not be afraid to release your inner animal. It's you or them, and you choose you. If you are allergic to nuts, make sure that the guy do not eat any Brazil nuts at all for the past 24 hours, I think, before any sexual activities. Brazil nuts can reside in semen and thus triggering your allergy. TLDR, you can die from a nut allergy by swallowing. Edit. The condition is called anaphylaxis. A life-threatening reaction can occur within seconds or minutes. Edit 2. My top-rated comment is now about a possible death by swallowing a nut. Thanks. Also thanks, kind stranger, for the silver. If someone is attacking, raping you, grab their ear and pull it hard. Ears aren't very strongly attached to the body. Even a 5-year-old has the strength to pull off an ear. The pain should stop the attack, and if they run away you have their ear, and so it will be easy to find the culprit. Also, ears curl up when removed from the body, so you can easily store it in your purse, wallet. Edit. This information was given to me by my mother after she went on a self-defense course. They gave her a hard plastic tube with a sharp X on the flat base to leave an X mark on the attacker when you hit them with it. It also unscrewed so you could use it to store any fluids or ears the attacker left behind. Let's say you get food poisoning like I did last winter. You're semi-delirious and not sure if you're about to puke or have diarrhea. Always err on the side of sitting on a toilet and keep a bag or bucket nearby just in case you're wrong. Throwing out a bag, washing out a bucket is infinitely better than the alternative of being wrong about one or the other. In the throes of my full-body purge, I became convinced I had to text my roommate this info because he was also laid up with the same case. He didn't respond, but both of our lives, or at least our bathrooms, were saved. Edit. Several folks have pointed out that eventually you may just want to get in your tub and let things happen. This is the preferred method if you're too dizzy to sit up for long periods of time. Bathtubs and showers are far easier to clean than anything else in your bathroom, plus the shower can keep you clean and hydrated in the meantime. Edit 2. The above only applies if everything coming out of you is completely liquid, otherwise you're gonna have to unclog your shower drain by hand. Edit 3, and for the love of God, if you feel like you might die, get a ride to the hospital or call an ambulance. I started getting better after the first day of this thing, but if you have other medical conditions or it doesn't get any better after a day or two, just get medical help. Even if it's expensive, your life is more important. My mom always told me when I was little that if I ever get stolen by a man, that the easiest way to escape is to scream as loud as I can, shove my fingers in their eyes and kick them as hard as I can in the balls, then run like hell. Edit. For those asking about women kidnappings, although they do happen, my mom didn't really see that as a threat. I was always told that if I was lost then I should try to find a kind-looking woman with children and ask her for help. There was a lot of assumptions occurring from this advice, but unfortunately 9/10 it will help in an emergency situation. Plus, kicking in the privates is always a good way to shock an attacker regardless of gender. Let's talk about shit and how dangerous it is. If you're bearing down too hard on the toilet because you're constipated, don't push and push. It can cause something called vasovagal syncope, otherwise known as vageling out. Vagal out rhymes with bagel. It lowers your blood pressure to your heart and stimulates your vagus nerve, which can cause you to pass out and be unconscious, and bathrooms are small. You could hit your head on something and it gets even more dangerous. I highly recommend footstools or the squatty potty to help going to the bathroom easier if you live in a country that does not already squat. It moves your colon into a better, less curved position than sitting on a toilet with your feet on the floor. All the stool does is elevate your feet. Not even very high. It is not uncomfortable, but check with your doctor if you have hip, knee, or back issues, to make sure you'd be okay using one. I use adjustable footstools, with 4 height adjustments. Everyone raves about bidets, but what they should be raving about is footstools for near your toilet. Don't ever stand on these. Bonus tip: if you're ever constipated or impacted and can't push something out, you need to try to drink a cup of hot, warm coffee, preferably light roast, high in caffeine to stimulate your bowels. Drink 2-4 glasses of water, or put on a glove with lube and barely use your finger to push around your anus, or just barely inside it gently, like you're trying to push toward the center, but not up, and try to pick out small pieces of the fecal matter to attempt to make the mass smaller for you to pass. It will likely be hard and dry. Go slow and gentle. Listen to your body. If these don't work, then try an over-the-counter laxative or go to the hospital. Sometimes laxatives build too much pressure behind the impacted spot. If you haven't taken a shit in 3 days and don't want to use a glove and help yourself, you need to go to the hospital for disimpaction and they may run an X-ray to make sure it's not impacted further up into your bowels. You can die from this and people have, or at the very least, you have to spend several days to weeks in the hospital. Don't let it happen to you. Set your pride aside and get help at a hospital if you're especially seeing dark brown blood like coffee grounds or tar consistency especially. Fresh blood isn't as much of a concern unless there is a lot of it, like a steady, thick stream of bright red blood that won't stop. Call an ambulance. If you have pain and can't sleep and are passing no gas whatsoever, or if you're vomiting especially the coffee ground texture or bile, which is green, not yellow. Yellow is stomach acid. Some people just aren't in an emotional position to date. I feel like everyone has been there at some point, but it's really good to know when to steer clear. Like if you have a bad feeling, don't do it. If you aren't in a position to date, don't date, and definitely don't let someone try to fix you. You aren't a broken toy to be pitied. I am happily married and I'm fine with commitments with people who will treat you well. Making commitments to people who are good for you is one of the most rewarding things about dating. But be careful with your heart because you deserve to be happy. Here are some tips for keeping yourself stable in a crazy world. Some people hide their personalities and problems until you are a few months in and then it's harder to end it. If you end up dating them, do not make big commitments with them until at least 3-6 months in. Most people can't keep up a facade for 3 months, let alone 6. Once you share a lease, a mortgage, a bank account, or a house, it is going to be much harder to leave someone who is unstable in a way that is psychologically or physically harmful. Try to be friends first. If you don't like someone, you should avoid getting romantically attached. You need to organically get into a fight with this person at some point. I'm not saying start fights or be toxic towards them, but it will happen eventually and you need to see how they handle it. That's why it's super important to be with someone for a while before doing something like getting married. If you don't trust someone, don't marry them. If they are mean to animals or are comfortable breaking your things, run. If they are mean to you and gaslight you when you confront them, run. If you have something like anxiety, don't let someone gaslight you into thinking you are crazy. If you feel like you need a prenup, you probably do. Set boundaries, and if someone bulldozes through them, leave immediately. You don't need to give them an explanation if you are leaving. If they start harassing you or disrespecting you for breaking up, cut ties, block them on everything. Tell friends that you'll friend dump them if they try to push boundaries by relaying messages from your ex. No means number. Choosing a parent for your child is the most important decision you can make for having a kid. If your baby daddy or baby mommy is a bad person, leave. Even being single with a respectful roommate is better than an abusive parent. If they hurt you or the kid, collect proof and get full custody. Also, absolutely follow up on exes. Be open about it with your significant other, but it's good to learn their side of the story. It's a really good way to lose that relationship, but you might be dodging a bullet. Don't hold on to someone who doesn't treat you like you are valuable or important. Don't settle for someone who treats you as expendable. Being single is better than being with someone who ruins your self-worth. If they say all my exes are crazy, run. And if someone leaves and is clear about not wanting to date you, leave them alone. Don't pretend to be their friend if all you want is to date them. If they are doing that, cut ties. TLDR, being single can be hard, but being in a toxic relationship is worse. It might not seem worse because love is intoxicating, but love isn't enough. You deserve to be treated well and so do they. So if they are hurting you, just be single. Don't hold on to someone who doesn't treat you like you are valuable or important. One of the worst things my recent ex-boyfriend said to me was, "You don't add any kind of value to my life." I'm glad I scrolled down this thread, because it really messed with me, and your comment will ring in my head whenever I'm doubting that breaking up was the right thing to do. Thank you, internet stranger, for your well-thought-out advice. I will never let anybody treat me as anything less than valuable again.